Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we button up a bunch of projects in the garden. So let's go. It is the end of October and you're probably in the same boat. I have a ton of projects I still need to do in the garden. It is definitely cold. This morning it is in the low 30s. We still haven't had a hard frost, but that's coming any day now. So before that happens, I have a bunch of other projects I need to get done. And to be honest with you, I don't know what we're going to get done today. I just know I want to tackle a bunch of things. I'm going to show you some of the ideas that I have, and then let's just get going. What we're looking at over here are window boxes. They're filled with annuals as well as perennials. So we need to get those emptied out. And over here are a bunch of hanging baskets. Do you remember in the spring when we planted those up? They were really pretty. And it was a big project to get them all planted up. Well, guess what? It's just as big of a project for us to empty those out. So we're going to be tackling those as well. They are filled with annuals and perennials. I also have a couple of window boxes over here. We're going to be emptying those as well. As we pan around near my porch, you can see there are a couple of pots over there. And as we move around this way, a whole bunch more pots. And they still look pretty. They're very beautiful. I am, for right now anyway, not going to worry about these pots. If we get to them in this project, great. But they are not the priority. We will tackle the hanging baskets and the window boxes first. But I just wanted to show you, just look how pretty they are. It is October 31st. We're almost at November, Zone 5B, New Hampshire. It's so nice to still have color in the yard. What I like to do when I have this many containers and pots to deal with is I basically just like to take out something like this type of container. And this is a cement mixing container that I just got from my mother-in-law's. I never really knew what to do with it. And actually it is perfect to use for gardening. And so that way I'm not making a big mess. In this window box, there are a bunch of plants. We have Lamium, which is a perennial. There is Lobularia or Alyssum, and that's an annual. Some of the window boxes, I'm not sure about this one, have Creeping Jenny. Looks like there is a piece in here, and that is a perennial. You can see it's like coming down this way right here. We have Dusty Miller over here in my zone that is considered an annual, although sometimes that does overwinter. Over here is an annual. It's a vinca, and actually I can see it's been going to seed. I showed you in a previous video how to collect the seeds from those, and I've collected plenty of seeds, so I'm not going to worry about collecting the seeds from those today. So let's go ahead and start taking apart this window box. First thing I'm going to do is I am actually just going to dump it right out into this container. And what's nice about fall time is I can use a lot of this green material in my compost bin. So for right now, I'm just going to put those in here. The alyssum I also collected a bunch of seeds from, so I'm excited. I will have a lot of plants to start from seed this winter under my grow lights. Gardening is a lot with experimenting, and with these vinca, I put them in these window boxes. They got too tall. I didn't love them in the window boxes, but it was worth a shot. Last spring, when we went around and got the Lamium, we got them for my landscape, and that worked out fine. And now that I have them in this hanging basket and we're taking the hanging basket apart, what I'm planning to do is to put these in small pots and sink them in the ground down in my plant nursery. Then come next spring, it'll be a lot easier for me to just pull those pots out of my plant nursery and get them going and putting them in my window boxes, my hanging baskets, whatever containers and pots I want to get them in. right now I'm just trying to take as much soil as I can out of them, and then we're going to try to divide them up so that we can put them in smaller pots. The same will hold true for the creeping Jenny. Again, last spring we went and we dug the creeping Jenny out from my vegetable garden, which was my temporary holding spot for the creeping Jenny. But it would be much easier now for me to take these creeping Jenny plants, pot them up, and put them down in my plant nursery. And that way I can just go shopping in my plant nursery next springtime. When it comes to the Dusty Miller, I'm going to overwinter these in my garage. I've never done that before, but since I know that they are semi-hardy in my zone, I figure they'll be fine in the garage. And the reason I want to do that is I want a nice big plant for next year. So since we have this plant here, we have something to start off with for next spring. So that will be an experiment for me. I'm going to pot those up, put them in the garage. What I'm doing here is I'm just trying to break apart these chunks that have formed in the potting mix. We're going to reuse this potting mix because a lot of these plants are just going down in my plant nursery anyway, and some of them are just going in my garage just to overwinter. They don't really need a lot of nutrients, and I am totally fine with just reusing this potting mix right now. Okay, now I'm going to go get some pots so we can pot up these perennials as well as this annual over here. I am all about recycling and reusing pots, and we have a nursery close by to here where they have an area where you can recycle your pots. So you can either leave them there or pick them up. And I definitely stop by at least once a week to see which pots have been dropped off. And I especially like these smaller pots. They're about 3-inch or 4-inch pots because a lot of times I just want small plants that I can then take and pop into my containers. So it works out well. I'd rather spend the time right now and cut back my plants, get them to a nice small size, and then they're perfect to be using in my window boxes and my container pots. So I have a handsaw here. I'm just going to cut this Lamium into 2 or 3 pieces, and I'm just going to cut right down in the middle. That's a nice, easy way to divide your Lamium. And we really do not need all this top growth. We want the plant to keep putting its energy into the roots. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut it back. As long as I leave just some leaves on the top part of the plant, it is good. It is totally fine. Because what it will do next year is just, it will reflush and create new growth at the top. And that just gives me more green material for my compost pile, which is a bonus. And the same applies for all the roots down here at the bottom. You don't need all these roots. The plant doesn't need it. We want to get it so that the plant can fit inside of these pots. I am all about trying to reuse pots, trying to reuse plants. I love being able to use perennials in my container pots. I just think they are beautiful. They add a nice pop of color. They look pretty in the landscape, but they also look pretty in container pots. So when it comes to the creeping Jenny, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just potting it up, and I'm also going to be cutting much of it back. And I'm very excited that I can then sink these pots into the ground. The key will be to sink them so that the bottom part of the pot is in the soil, the top part is not. You don't want it to rot. The next thing I'm going to do is take this dusty miller. I'm going to put it in its own pot. I have a bunch of plants that I'm going to be overwintering in my garage. And I've had luck with a number of plants and doing it that way. Like I said, I've never done that with the dusty miller, but I'm going to give it a try. It should work. And if it doesn't, that's okay. The key will be to just make sure that it doesn't fully dry out, but that also I'm not giving it too much water. I just want to check on it probably once a month. And if it seems very dry, then I'll add water to it. And for right now, just for demonstration purposes, I've put it in a small pot. Most likely as I go through and I empty out more of my containers, if I want to put them into a little bit bigger pot than this, I can do that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and keep tackling all of my other plants here, which in this case are my Lamium. And then I have a few more window boxes that looked just like this one. I'm going to do the same exact thing. And then we're going to tackle those hanging baskets. 3 window boxes have been emptied. Here's a whole tray of Creeping Jenny. And there are the Dusty Miller that were collected from those window boxes. And a full tray and a partial tray of the Lamium. Not bad. I have a bunch of green that was collected that's going to go into my compost pile. And here is the first of many hanging baskets. We're going to tackle one of them together now. Because I use so many containers in my garden, it really makes sense for me to reuse my plants if I can. And that's why I like to put perennials in a lot of my pots and containers. It would get really, really expensive if I was to try to buy all the plants. I like to reuse my cocoa liners. They typically last me about 2 years, sometimes 3. And you can see that this one's in really good shape. I'm pretty sure it was brand new this year, so I'll reuse it next year. In the spring, we had planted the Lamium in here, the Creeping Jenny, and then there were some pansies in here. And we also had some alyssum in here. They looked really, really pretty. I like to hang these hanging baskets on my trees, lining the driveway as you head down the driveway. And I also like to have them hanging on a bunch of the trees in my backyard and then some trees on my side yard. I made a video that showed you how to take your Creeping Jenny and propagate it. So I'll be sure to link it above in case you want to look at that video. It's getting late in the season. I don't love dividing plants and putting them in the landscape this time of year. But the reality is they will be better off healed into the ground than they will be in their window boxes and hanging baskets. And I really do not want to winter over these in my barn or in my garage in all those containers. I feel like it was just yesterday that we were putting all these hanging baskets together, and here we are taking them apart already. When we put these hanging baskets together, these plants were pretty small, and they definitely have multiplied within the containers that they were in, which is nice. I'm not going to lie, it's definitely tedious doing this project, but it will be so worth it next year when I want to make more pots and containers and I can just go shopping and everything is in a nice small container. So I am motivated just knowing that I have something to look forward to for next year. I'm excited that I can use this soil here, that I have plenty of it. I did bring over a bucket just in case if I needed more soil, but for right now, I haven't needed any extra soil. I've been able to just reuse what I have, which is wonderful. When I'm putting these plants into their pots, I'm trying not to pack them too full because I know that over the next few weeks, they may grow a little bit more. And then come spring, they'll start growing again. And who knows when I will get to all of these plants. So I want to make sure that I leave enough room in the pots to allow them to keep growing. I don't want to just have them packed with roots and no dirt. And if I feel like in the springtime that I want to put, let's say, 2 of these pots together so that they make more of an impact, I can do that at that time. But in terms of space inside of my plant nursery, it is very nice to have smaller pots also so that I can really pack the plants in. And the plants look sad right now. I realize that, but after all, it is almost November. So it is okay. They had a good summer. They looked wonderful, and it's now time for them to go to sleep for the winter. I like using these type of trays to put my plants in just for purposes of transporting them. It makes it super easy. And I also get these for free from a local garden center where they have all these pots for free. So it works out really well. And if they break because they are plastic and they can get a little flimsy if they're too heavy, I have plenty of them, but it really works out well for transporting my plants. Now that we've taken apart this one hanging basket, I have a whole bunch more to do. I'm going to do the same exact process and I'll show you how I make out and how many plants we end up with in the end. Well, that project took all day, but it was well worth the effort. I have plants here and here that we potted up today. Some of the plants that are right here were already here. So these are asparagus, in case you're wondering. And this tray right here is another tray of creeping Jenny that came from a previous project. But other than these 3 trays right here, the rest of the trays are all plants that we potted up today from all of the hanging baskets and 3 of the window boxes. I did not get to the 2 window boxes that were over near my porch. Totally okay. It was a long project, and I do feel that I set a realistic goal for myself. I'm very happy with what got done today. And on a different day, I'm going to have to heal all of these plants in, very soon, in fact. And all healing in means is getting the pot in the ground with dirt surrounding it and leaving the top part exposed. Right behind me, over there, is space where all of these plants are going to go. I will be doing that very soon. But I hope you enjoyed watching the process of what I do to take apart my hanging baskets and window boxes. They're all different. These ones in particular had a lot of Lamium and a lot of creeping Jenny in them. And I think it's important to show you that you can save a lot of money that way. My channel is all about how to garden on a budget, and you can see all the plants that we got out of all of those containers and pots. And these are plants that I can reuse again year after year. They're going to keep growing, they're going to keep getting bigger. And over time, if I need to thin some out, put them in the landscape, give some to friends or family, I can do that as well. But I'm hoping that this video motivated you to get out in your yard, even if it's just for a little bit. A small amount of time can make a big difference, especially this time of year. Until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.